Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. We all love Pride and Prejudice, right?
Of course.
But today we're going deeper than Darcy's brooding good looks.
Huh.
We're really going to dig into Austen's characters.
I like it.
And get this, we're looking at George Allen's essay from 1894.
Wow.
So it's like getting a 19th century perspective on these characters we think we know so well.
Fascinating.
Right. Okay, so let's start with everyone's favorite sarcastic dad, Mr. Bennet.
Oh, he's a good one.
Right, like that line, let us flatter ourselves that I may be the survivor.
Classic Mr. Bennet.
So witty, but also kind of makes you go, hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely more to him.
And that's what's so interesting about this essay. Alan actually wants us to feel a little bad for the guy.
Really?
Yeah, he says we gotta remember who Mr. Bennet is married to. Like, imagine being stuck with Mrs. Bennet every single day.
I can't even imagine.
Right, and Alan suggests that all that irony and sarcasm.
And hiding in the library.
Exactly. It's less about Mr. Bennet being checked out and more about him trying to cope.
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
Right. It's like he's using humor to deal with a situation he just can't escape.
Interesting. So you think Austen wanted us to sympathize with him a bit?
Maybe not fully sympathize, but at least see him as more than just a sarcastic observer.
Yeah, I can see that.
Like there's a sadness to him, too.
Right. And Alan argues that Austen is actually using Mr. Bennet to critique the society they lived in.
Oh, how so?
Well, back then, marriage wasn't always about love, right?
Especially for women.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So Alan's point is that Mr. Bennet is trapped in this marriage, and his wit is his only escape.
That's a really good point.
It makes you see him in a whole new light.
It really does. Speaking of characters with limited options, though.
Oh, no. Who are you going to say?
Can we talk about Mr. Collins for a second?
Oh, Mr. Collins.
He's like the king of awkward.
It's painful to read sometimes.
I know. But here's the thing. Alan says he's actually very realistic.
Wait, really?
Yeah. He argues that in Austen's time, there were tons of Mr. Collinses running around.
I guess I never thought about it that way.
It's easy to just see him as a caricature.
Totally.
But Alan says, think about the social dynamics.
Okay, I'm listening.
Someone like Lady Catherine with all her money and her title.
Oh, she could make or break you?
Exactly. And Mr. Collins, he's desperate to climb that social ladder.
He's got no shame.
None whatsoever. And Alan says that's what Austen captures so brilliantly.
Our desperation to please?
Yes. And how people like Lady Catherine use that to control everyone around them.
It's funny how some things never change.
Right. Like swap out the powdered wigs for a smartphone.
And Lady Catherine is on Instagram now.
Exactly. There's totally a modern-day Mr. Collins out there somewhere.
Oh, sure of it.
Trying way too hard to impress the boss at the office party.
And failing miserably.
As always. But it's amazing how Austen just nails these personality types.
Timeless, you mean?
Exactly. They're timeless. Okay, but speaking of timeless characters, we got to talk about Mr. Darcy.
Oh, you know it.
I mean, come on. He's the original romantic hero.
Brooding and handsome and rich.
Exactly. But even Darcy gets a fresh look from Alan's essay.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, you know all those classic Darcy debates? Like, is he proud or just misunderstood?
And is his transformation believable or just convenient for the plot?
Yes. It feels like every Austen fan has an opinion on that.
They really do.
So what does Alan say about all that?
Well, he starts by reminding us just who Darcy is. I mean, this isn't some guy at a party.
He's like the ultimate bachelor.
Right. He's wealthy, he's got status, and he was raised with this very clear idea of how the world works.
So, like, he can't help but be a little snobby.
Well, Alan's point is that we need to see his pride within that context.
Like, he genuinely doesn't know any other way to be.
Exactly. And then we get to the big transformation.
The moment when Darcy turns into husband material.
Right. And Alan's take on that is really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says it's Elizabeth's rejection that changes everything.
Oh, because she refuses to be impressed by him.
Yes. She challenges his whole worldview.
So it's not just that she's falling for him, she's making him see things differently.
Precisely. And because she's so intelligent and quick-witted, he has to rise to the occasion.
I like that it's not just a love story. It's about two strong people pushing each other to grow.
Exactly. They make each other better.
But not every character in Pride and Prejudice gets such a satisfying arc.
Oh, no. Who are you thinking?
Let's talk about Lady Catherine de Bourgh.
Oh, boy, Lady Catherine.
Is there anything Alan can say to redeem her?
Well, he might not redeem her, but he does make a good point.
Okay, I'm all ears.
He says that as outrageous as Lady Catherine is, she's also realistic.
Really? How so?
Think about the kind of power she had back then. She was wealthy, titled, used to getting her way.
The ultimate Karen of her time.
Exactly. And Alan points out that there were real-life Lady Catherines in Austen's world.
Wow, I never thought about that.
So yes, she's over the top, but she represents something real about that society.
Like that sense of entitlement and privilege.
Exactly. And Austen uses her to critique that kind of unchecked power.
And she does it with such humor.
That's the beauty of Austen. But it's amazing, isn't it? We're looking at these characters through the eyes of someone who lived over a century ago.
And it still resonates with us.
It really does. Which makes you wonder, what would we see in these characters that maybe even Alan missed?
Okay, so if we're doing a modern-day Pride and Prejudice, I think Darcy has to be like a tech CEO.
Ooh, yeah, totally.
With that whole mysterious billionaire vibe.
Yes. And instead of Pemberley, he has a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park.
Perfect. And he's always jetting off to Davos or something.
Of course. And all his friends are venture capitalists.
And they're always talking about disrupting something.
Exactly. So who's our modern Elizabeth?
Ooh, good question. Okay, maybe she's a journalist.
I like it.
But not just any journalist. She's like an investigative reporter.
Ooh, taking down corrupt corporations.
Yes. And she's working on this huge expose of Darcy's company.
No way.
And she has no idea he's totally smitten with her.
This is good. Okay, this is good.
Right. I can see the whole enemies to lovers thing already.
Totally. Okay, wait. But who's Lady Catherine in this scenario?
Oh my gosh, Lady Catherine. She has to be a social media influencer.
Of course.
Mhm.
With millions of followers.
And she's always posting about her fabulous life.
And judging everyone who doesn't measure up.
Yes. Like she'd have a whole team managing her online presence.
And she'd be trying to control everyone's lives through her Instagram stories.
Totally. It's almost too perfect.
It really is. But it makes you think, right? Would these characters still work in a modern setting?
That's the question, isn't it?
Like Darcy with all his money and his pride,
yeah.
and Elizabeth with her independence.
And Lady Catherine with her need to control everything?
Exactly. It's like Alan was saying, those personality types are timeless.
Totally. We might change the setting and the clothes, but underneath it all.
It's still Pride and Prejudice.
Exactly. And that's what makes Austen so brilliant.
She tapped into something universal about human nature.
And those themes of love and class and society.
It's still so relevant today.
They really are. Well, I don't know about you, but this whole conversation has made me want to reread Pride and Prejudice.
Me too.
It's amazing how a book written over 200 years ago can still feel so fresh and relevant.
It just goes to show Austen's genius as a writer.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us as we explored the enduring characters of Pride and Prejudice.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to our listeners for joining us. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.